Hi. For those of you that came in just a little bit early, I went ahead and started the broadcast to give you an opportunity to get situated, get set up, and we will be starting promptly in about 2 minutes. So you'll get a chance to just kind of sit back, relax, and as I said, get situated and get ready for what hopes to be a really great and fun lunchtime learning webinar on goal setting. Hi, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining in. Hopefully, you're going to have a great lunch. As any good Southerner would, I have my sweet tea here. And feel free to send in questions. You can tweet me at Dr. Qualls. And when you tweet, if you are a tweeter, be sure to use the hashtag #InvestInYou, because that's one of our goals for this year, is to invest in us in some way, form, or fashion. So it's 12:30. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. And as people come in, you know how people are with lunches. Sometimes they drag in a little slower than others, or perhaps you may be watching this on rebroadcast. So if that's the case, I'm sure you wouldn't want to go through and listen to all of the waiting period. So we'll just jump right into it. Goal setting. First of all, Happy New Year. Happy 2016 to you. We are 20 days in, and a lot has happened in the first 20 days of 2016. Personally, professionally, it's off to a great start. Yes, there have been challenges, but there have also been some great victories and celebrations. And hopefully you have seen the same thing too. But today, I thought for the first kickoff of lunchtime learning for 2016, I thought we'd spend a little time talking about goals and goal setting and SMART goals. So we all have goals. Goals are everywhere. We have life goals, we have professional goals, we have work goals, we have, just dreams, big dreams. We have a goal. Some people have a goal of just making it out of the bed and putting on clothes or getting dressed. Others have goals of running a marathon, or others may have goals of starting a business. Whatever your goal is, whatever it is for 2016, or whatever your goals have been for previous years, how successful have you been at achieving your goals? That's one of the things that we'll be talking about today, is setting SMART goals so that you can have the success that you desire. But let's talk for a minute about what exactly is a goal. And for the purposes of our lunchtime learning, let's kind of use the definition of goal as being something that you have thought about, or something that you've dreamed about, or just you think you want to accomplish. But the key fact in goals and goal setting, and what differentiates a goal from just another idea or a dream, the difference is the goal you write down. So it's not just something that's stuck in your head. It's stuck in your head. It makes it all the way through down to your arm, and you write it on paper. You document it. And I guess for the 21st century, we probably need to update our documentation definition, because you might be documenting things on your smartphone. You may have a recorder where you are speaking into and recording your goals or ideas or your dreams. The most important thing, though, is that it is documented, that it's not something that's just residing in your head or in your mind. Why? And why is it important that you write down or document your goals? First and foremost, when that happens, you become accountable. You become accountable for achieving that goal. I think a lot of us, and I know I'm guilty of this myself, I've been practicing the writing down the goal thing for quite some time now. But I know that there are instances where I have thought things that I want to accomplish, but I don't write them down. And why is that? It's because of that accountability factor. Because once I write it down, I am accountable for achieving it. Many of us sometimes won't write it down because we may be fearful of actually achieving it. If we write it down, then we know that we're going to have to do something to make sure that it gets done. And so if I don't write it down, then it's just kind of staying up here. No one knows about it. It's just me. And I can try to do things that work toward that goal. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine. Never let a fear for failure stop you from pursuing your dreams or your goals. Because failure is that stepping stone to success. And sometimes I really don't believe in failures or failed goals, because sometimes not achieving your goals may be a good thing. But if you've not written them down, then how do you learn from it? How do you have a documented record of learning from what it is that you've already done? The other thing about writing it down and holding you accountable is just that. It keeps you from repeating the same things over and over and over again. So if you have a goal, if you have an idea, if you have an idea, you have something that you want to accomplish, make sure that you write it down. It will hold you accountable for achieving that goal. The other thing that happens is you're able to really communicate that goal. So not only are you accountable, but you're also able to communicate it and share it with others. Now, that's not saying that you should share your goal with everyone, any and everyone, but you share your goal with those people who will keep you accountable and who will hold you accountable for doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing. So I've written down a goal partly for some of our lunchtime learnings that I want to make sure that it reaches a larger audience. And so by doing that, you can help me out. You can see at the bottom of the screen, if you're tweeting, live tweeting, any questions that you have, send them at Dr. Qualls and put the hashtag #InvestInYou. So by the end of the year, when I go back and I look at how impactful have these webinars been, I'll be able to have something, go back to the hashtag, and I can measure and see how many participants that we have or how active or engaged was the audience or my viewers in these lunchtime learnings. I remember, I know I'm dating myself here, but the Survivor reality shows, when they first started, one of the winners, I think she may have been like the second or third winner for that $1 million or so prize, but they asked her about, was she surprised at winning? And I remember this really clearly. She says, no, because I wrote it down and I made it plain. She's a very religious or spiritual person, and so she took that scripture, Habakkuk 2:2, to heart. She wrote it down and she made it plain. And I think there's really something to that. You just cannot negate the power of writing down your goals and making it plain. So making it plain kind of gets to what we'll be talking about toward the end of our lunch in terms of making them smart. But again, if there's nothing that you take away from lunch today, remember, write down your goals. Hold yourself accountable for achieving them. Never be afraid of writing down your goals. Never be afraid of trying. If you think it, then you can accomplish it. It may not happen in the time frame in which you think. You may have to get additional resources or help for doing so, but set the goal and then we'll put the plan in place to make sure it happens. But today we're just going to focus on the goal setting aspect. So we learned that number one, writing our goals down differentiated from being just another good idea or a dream. The goals being written down also makes you accountable and holds you accountable. The third thing is, when you write the goal down, you're able to communicate and share it with your audience. Now, I know there's probably a range of people that are listening in. You may be a student, graduate student, postdoc. You may be starting off on your jobs. You may have been working on your job for several years. You may be an executive. It doesn't matter what your level is. It doesn't matter what your role is in the organization. When we start talking about professional goals, we can all even write and have and document professional goals as well. And having them written down helps us. It helps us achieve the goal. Now, particularly in instances of management or managers, writing the goals down and being able to share them with your team it helps your team have a better understanding about what it is that they're supposed to be doing and what it is that they're supposed to accomplish. It gives them something tangible so that they can actually see. It's one thing for you, if you are a manager, it's one thing for you to talk to your staff or talk to your team members and say what you want to accomplish for the year. But the other thing is, or there's another thing, excuse me, it's another thing. Wow, I'm really tongue tied. Maybe I need to have a little sip of tea. But it's another thing for them to actually see what it is that your goals are for the team. They can buy into those goals. They can see where they fit in. And as they are then developing their goals, they can make sure that they are aligned with what it is that you're trying to achieve for the team. Sometimes when you work in corporate structures or organizations, there is a delay in getting goals out, particularly at the beginning of the year. This is the goal setting time of the year. And so what is it that you're going to accomplish for this year? And I remember when I worked in corporate, that was one of the things that I was always anxious about. When do we get the organizational goals? How do we know what it is that we're supposed to be working on? So you don't feel as though you're just kind of sitting around twiddling your thumbs. Having those goals as leaders, having those goals written down and being able to share with your teams or with your organizations will help them stay engaged. It will help them focus, and it helps them, it'll mobilize them. They'll be able to understand and know what it is that they are supposed to be doing in order to achieve your goals or the goals of the organization. So communication is key. Accountability and communication are extremely key in making sure that you have your goals. So think about it. Think back to a situation where you have been a member of a team, or perhaps you are a member of an organization or a committee member, and it just seems like nothing is happening. You feel lost. It's kind of frustrating, isn't it? When you don't know what it is that you're supposed to be working on and or how you are supposed to fit in. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever been in a situation where you have been waiting on your manager, where you've been waiting on your leader to share their goals or their visions for the organization so that you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing? See, that's how it kind of works in organizations, and why some organizations are extremely successful and productive and others are lagging, and it always seems as though they're having to recreate a wheel. It's because you can track it back to how are they setting goals, and not only setting the goals, how are they sharing them throughout their organization. Now, maybe you're that manager. It's important that you realize that maybe, just maybe, part of the reasons that your team is not performing the way in which you would like for them to perform is because they need some goals. They need not only goals that they hear you verbally speaking, they need to see them. And it does take some time. It takes a bit of a time to sit back and think about what it is that you want to achieve, particularly when you are managing or leading an organization. So for leaders or for aspiring leaders, keep that in mind. Managing people, managing projects, you still need a roadmap. You still need goals. So, we've talked about goals, and we've talked about goal setting, but how do we make those goals smart? How is it and what is it that sets or differentiates those people who set goals and those people who are actually accomplishing the goals? What is it that sets them apart? And that's where we get into the SMART goal or SMART goal setting. Have you ever heard of that? Well, SMART is actually an acronym, so it's not a SMART goal as into a SMART goal, dumb goal, like a stupid goal, but it's a SMART goal, meaning that it's specific, it's measurable, it's actionable, it's realistic, and it's time bound. So let's spend a few minutes talking about goals and how to make them smart. So let's start out first with the S. S being specific. What does specific mean? It means that it's very clear. It's clearly defined, it's spelled out, it's detailed, where you really know what it is that you're doing. So there's a difference between a goal and a specific worded goal. For an example, maybe you want to make a difference. Some people have a goal of making a difference. Some people have a goal of, you know what, I want a new job. I want a new career. Yes, it is a goal. It's not really specific. Let's make that goal of starting a business specific. What if you said that, say, I want to start a business where I'm selling homemade chocolate chip cookies and selling on Etsy? That's pretty specific because you're starting a business, but not only are you starting a business, you're talking about what kind of business that you're starting. And you've gone a little bit further as to saying what channel that you want to sell your particular product. So see the difference? The goal is fine of starting a business. That's what we would just kind of call a broad goal. And how likely are you to succeed in saying, I want to start a business? That's fine, but let's get specific. I want to start a homemade chocolate chip cookie making business and I'm selling on Etsy. Okay? Specific. Let's go to the next one. M, measurable. Now, some people ask what's most important in the SMART goal setting process. It kind of depends, but for me, I think the M, or the measurable portion, is probably one of the most important parts of your goal, next to time bound. But measurable means just that. How will you quantify it? How will you know? And the way I always tell my clients when I'm working with them, when we talk about making your goal measurable, the easiest way for me to explain it is, how will you know that you succeeded? How will you measure your success? How will you determine that you have actually achieved or accomplished that goal? And it's really important to put a metrics or something measurable in your goal in the beginning, so that at the end, when you go back and you review it, you can actually see, I really did accomplish something. Don't underestimate the power or the importance of metrics. So I'll use a personal example for me again. One of the things I started setting out, I said, you know what? I want to do more webinars this year. Well, that's a goal, to do more webinars this year. But, more could be one, more could be three, but I want to make it measurable. I want to make sure that at the end of the year, I can actually say, yes, I achieved that goal. So rather than me just saying, I want to do more webinars this year, when I'm writing my goal, I can say, I want to host one webinar per month throughout 2016. That means I'm going to have 12 webinars. So at the end of the year, in December, when I do my review, I can go back and I say, hey, did I host 12 webinars? Did I host at least one webinar per month in 2016? Yes, I achieved that goal. The next thing you want to talk about is actionable. Now, you may Google, or you may have seen different other letters, or different other words to describe the letters for SMART. Some people say actionable, action-oriented, achievable. I like actionable because when you're thinking about goals, they need to be action-oriented. It doesn't need to be something that's passive, because if it's passive, the goal can pass you on by and you don't achieve it. But make it actionable. So when you're writing your goals down, make sure that it starts out with an action verb. Do, be. Be is not actionable, but make, develop, create. All of those types of things can be actionable. And so, okay, maybe one of your goals is to become a subject matter expert in your area. Become a subject matter expert in my area. It's a nice goal to have. It's a lofty goal, but how do you actually do that? Maybe if you thought a little bit more about that and made it actionable, present at leading conferences in your area. That way you're presenting, you are visible. People will begin to hear you and know what it is that you're presenting on. And they'll begin to say, hey, you know what? Maybe she is an expert in that area. They'll begin to seek you out for your expertise. So actionable. Make sure that you use action verbs when you're writing down your goals. Not just the passive verbs, the be's, the ands, the wills. Make sure that they are actionable, where you can do something and track it. The next part is R, is realistic. This is another one where some people say realistic, some people say relevant, but at the end of the day, I like realistic because if it's relevant, it is realistic. And what does that mean? Realistic means that it's aligned with your values. If it's a personal goal, then it's aligned with your core values. If it's a professional goal or if it's an organizational goal, it's still realistic and it's aligned with the mission and values of that particular organization. And I have to stress the word alignment here because this is an area where so many of my younger clients, you're just kind of starting out in your job 2 or 3 years in, or even some middle management people who are ready to make that next move and have not really gotten that promotion or not really understanding why they aren't able to move. When you set your goals, it's almost as though, I'm working on things, but are you working on the right things? And as you are setting your goals and developing your goals, are they aligned with what your management or your manager's manager or the organization's values matter? And in order to be successful at achieving those goals, you're putting the right amount of time and effort on them. Make sure that they're realistic. Make sure that they are properly aligned with what your organization is. As well as if it's a personal goal, make sure that it's aligned with your core values and what you really believe in. Because it's one thing to set a goal or something that you want to do, and it's contradictory to what you really believe in. How motivated are you going to be to achieve it? It takes more than just putting it down on paper, because it could be a goal, it could be specific, it could be measurable, you can have it action oriented, and I'll skip to the T, it could even be time bound. But if it's not realistic, how likely are you to really achieve that particular goal and be successful? So when you think of R and you're writing your goals out, make sure that they're realistic, make sure that they are aligned, either aligned with your core values if they're personal goals, or again, aligned with the organizational values if you are working with an organization. And the last letter for setting our goals is T, time bound. It's pretty self-explanatory, and this is the one I said it's the second most important one, along with measurable and time bound. You want to make sure that when you're setting your goal, when you have documented, when you've written it down, that you are clear as to when you want to have it accomplished. If you want to have these webinars done by 2016, I put by the end of 2016. What if I said by the end of the quarter, I want to be able to have at least 3? Sometimes you have to do that with your goals. You have to break them down into little pieces. They're long, but you can make them more attainable and achievable when you break them down time-wise. And that's a difference between long-term goals and your short-term immediate goals. Long-term goals are more broad and general in nature, and they really are kind of higher level. But when you talk about achieving them, you can take those long-term goals. They don't necessarily have to be SMART, but it's your goal. You have sub-goals or objectives, and you can make those SMART to be able to achieve your longer term or overarching goal. Make sense? So big goal, maybe I want to run a marathon. I'm not a runner, so that's not really a great example for me. But for those of you that aspire to run a marathon, the large goal may be to run a marathon. But let's put a time bound or time your parameters around it. When do you want to run that marathon? By the time I'm 50, or by the time I'm 40, by the time I'm 30, I would like to run a marathon. So that's giving you a little bit more time bound or parameters as to when the marathon will have to be run and what you'll have to do in order to get in shape to run that marathon. So this has been fun. We've gone through goal setting. We've gone through what it takes to be a SMART goals, given a few examples. And one of the things that I actually like, I sent out a couple of queries and said, hey, what kind of questions do you have when you start thinking about SMART goals or when you start thinking about goal setting? And I actually think for all of my workshops or sessions, this is probably what the participants get the most out of, because regardless of what it is that I've said or a presenter says, I think the real learning comes in the Q&A period. And so one of the things that I would like to do for the rest of the year with these lunchtime learnings is before the sessions, I'll send out emails or tweets. And if you have specific questions, send them in and I'll answer them. So I got a lot of questions, a page full of questions that I'll just kind of pick a few and go through in our last 4 or 5 minutes of lunch here, because the other thing that I'm going to make sure that we're in and out in 30 minutes. Your time is valuable. 30 minutes of investing in you is extremely valuable. So I'm going to honor that commitment and keep these within that time period. So questions. I kind of touched on this one as we went through, but what's more important when setting SMART goals, the S, the M, the A, or the R and the T? Again, it really depends on you and what matters most. But 2 things are really standing out for me is make sure they're measurable, because you want to know and be able to document or be able to tell how you were successful. And you also want to put a time bound around it. Otherwise, it will just keep going on and on and on and on. And the longer it's out there, the less likely you are to achieve that goal and be successful. What do you mean by writing it down? You know, that's one of the things you kind of look back on. If you look at successful people, whether you're a business or acting or writers or whomever, they usually have, a little notebook or something. They're always writing something around. I love these little notebooks. You can get them at the dollar store, 50 cents or $1, but you're able to write down your ideas. And when you write down your ideas, they are then turned into goals. And you can go back and read through and see what it is that you wanted. I always noticed people that I looked up to, my mentors or people that I thought were successful. And that was one of the things that kind of differentiated them from being successful in what they did and those times when they weren't, is they always had them written down. So whether you have a journal and journaling, whether you are even writing down on a scrap piece of paper, make sure that you are writing down those goals. That's really important. And what you write them on is not as important. Just make sure that you're collecting them and able to review them. Let's see. When do you need to have SMART goals for longer term items or in general? SMART goals work best in the shorter term. As I said before, the longer term goals are broad, but when you really want to achieve and specific, that's when you can use the SMART goals. So anywhere from 1 week, 2 weeks, up to probably, I would say, 2 years on projects, depending on things that you may be working on for launching. What does it mean to have a stretch goal? A stretch goal is not necessarily a SMART goal, but a stretch goal, when you kind of go down the list of things, is it realistic or not? Those that have stretch goals, it's something that you're doing that you may not have the ability or proven ability to do it, but you're capable of doing it. So if you think about a rubber band, it has the capacity. You're capable of doing it, but you're really going to have to push and stretch yourself to get it done. You're going to have to learn some new things. You're going to have to learn new things very quickly. You're going to have to do different things that may be outside of the scope of what you went to school for, or outside of the scope of what your day-to-day job is. But you're capable of doing it. And someone, whether it's your manager or your mentor, has identified that you have that capability and want to put you in a role where you are stretched. And in stretching, you grow. You become more flexible. So stretch goals, not necessarily a SMART goal, but it's a stretch goal where you are able to demonstrate your capabilities. We have time for one more. And let's see, when should I write goals? How often should I revisit? And should I share the goals? Write the goals, as I said, whenever you have an idea or something that you want to accomplish, you write them down. The beginning of the year is usually a good time because there's this reset button. You're able to restart. And so the beginning of the year is typically the time where we are writing goals for our year. How often should I revisit it? Some people are pretty particular about how often they visit their goals. Some people do it daily. I think daily may be a bit much, but if you have them written on a wall somewhere on your board where you can see them, if that works for you, reviewing them daily helps. But I would say at least 2 or 3 times a month, make sure you're reviewing your goal and going over it. Should you share it? Touched on this earlier. I would say share your goals with people who will hold you accountable. Share your goals with people who will make sure and check in with you. Share your goals with people who may be able to assist you or provide resources to you in achieving your goals. Those are the people who I would share my goals with. No, I wouldn't share with everyone because everyone isn't on your team. And quite honestly, people aren't always there to help you. Sometimes when we tell people things, they can be a distraction, be it friends or family or loved ones. And so make sure that the people who you are sharing your goal with will hold you accountable. Well, this has been fun. This has been really, really fun. The time has flown by. I can't believe 30 minutes has gone by already. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to type them in. If you're watching on YouTube, type them in. Tweet me at drqualls, invest in you, or I'm going to put up a contact slide. There's my contact information. mqualls@entropiaconsulting.com. Visit my website. Give me a call, Twitter, connect on LinkedIn. This has been fun. Hopefully you've learned a lot about setting goals, how to make them smart. And until next month, we will be talking about another fun subject. I think we're going to be talking about active versus passive networking on next month. So please feel free to join in and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and thank you. Bye-bye.